What up, YouTube? It's your boy Banks. And we back in the building, you feel me? It's True Talks. Cause True Talks, alright? Let's get straight right into it. So you already know, man, last night was obviously, could have been a closeout game for the Nets, and obviously a back against the wall game for the Bucks, right? You already know, back against the wall at home for Milwaukee, and the Nets on the road. We obviously seen what KD did in Game 5, one of his signature, most important or impressive or best game of all time for him, when he's had a plethora of these. But obviously with the circumstances that change, rightfully so, it does rank up there for his greatest all-time performances in terms of just the fact that Harden was hobbled, barely moving, Kyrie not there, and it's just basically him just bucket after bucket after bucket after bucket. You gotta love it. So what I mean, it is obviously what elite looks like. But I've been saying KD's been this guy from time. You already know. If you don't know, go see the last video on the breakdown of that. But at the end of the day, now it's a new game, and it's Game 6, and obviously you saw a lot of things change. You saw, honestly, at this point, there's not too much adjustments that are being made that are different. There's minor ones, like maybe Brook coming higher off the high pick and roll and stuff like that. But, the main adjustments that's being made due to, Harden being limited and being, less, mobile and stuff like that, and being more of a liability, especially on defense and at times in offense, and just a liability for himself and how he moves and how he normally would move. He still did act pretty good, pretty damn solid or great individually, knowing and factoring the fact that he has a hamstring injury and that he could barely move. But for the grand scheme of the team and just the grand scheme of stuff in general, it has brought a lot of changes to the Nets, and they do have some things that they got to work out in terms of the Harden factor versus maximizing KD. And I'll talk about that, obviously, when I give the context. But, just in general, you've seen there's not too much adjustments, like I said, but you've seen the Bucks go ham, go to the paint, do stuff that they, that they've been doing. And honestly, they don't really play different. They still, at the end of the day, as much as people say the Bucks need to go into the paint, like, they're not the Bucks if they're not hitting shots. And that's what you've seen. Middleton hitting shots, shot creating shots. Middleton, I've always said, is literally their best player and their main player. And if Middleton isn't that guy, like showing KD like ability, then that's where it's like, okay, they're literally done for. And it's Middleton, then Drew, and then Giannis. Because Giannis gets his buckets, whether he scores 30, like, he does the same thing in a win and a loss. Like, he's not the one that's going to impact or change the way you win or lose. It's going to be Middleton and Drew adding what he can add, right? It's going to be those two guys mainly as their hierarchy and importance of what's vital to us winning. We have to hit these shots. We have to shot create. We have to kill on the one-on-one. If we're not able to apply that ability, then it's over, because Giannis can't put the team on his shoulder with that lack of ability. So we already know how that goes. But let's go into the context, because I give you that context. Let's go straight right into it, boy. So again, we're going to talk about it because there's some things to talk about. Obviously, it's a set in the table game for Game 7. And before I even get into, the nitty-gritty with the play, like what's happening in terms of breaking down the Nets, their deficiencies with the Harden factor, and obviously there's positives that he brings to the table as well. But there's big negatives and glaring negatives that he brings. Not because it's Harden, but because it's a limited Harden. Obviously, we know he's injured, right? But the fact the Harden that we have right now is bringing a lot of deficiencies into the Nets, and it's affecting a lot of things that is crucial. And I'm going to talk about what probably changes Nash might have to make for Game 7, or else you run the risk of, a Game 6 happening again, because you can't keep going down and have to do this comeback shit. At some point, you're not going to be able to come back, right? But there's some positives, like within these Game 5 and Game 6, since we've seen Harden, that they could go to certain things that could change the outcome of a lot of things, right? But I'm going to talk about that. Before we even talk about that, let's talk about what's actually happening at hand. And people won't talk about it because, again, people will say, oh, Banks, so why you do this when they lose? You want to speak about this and whatever, and all this. Again, it's not about bias. It has nothing to do with that. It's just, I understand what's going on, and it's about the truth first and everything else second. That's why it's True Talks, right? Besides who I like and whatever and all of that type of stuff. Like, but I don't use biases. I never do, right? And I already had this as a Nets in 6, but I told y'all that, especially with Kyrie healthy, forget even Harden being injured. Kyrie being healthy, because you have the 2 main shot creators and everything else second in terms of Kyrie and KD, and their shot creating ability is 10 times better than a Drew and Middleton, even though Drew and Middleton are nice with it. You get what I'm saying? That's what it came down to, and that's what you saw in the first 2 games. But what you're also seeing is what NBA, and this is why a lot of people who really understand the game, when they watch different sports, they do say this sentiment, and there is this sentiment going around where they have struggles enjoying or watching sometimes basketball games because versus other sports, like maybe even football or whatever, because the refs have too much power. They have too much power. Like other sports, the refs don't really have as much power because there's only certain limited calls that they could affect and change the game. Like even like soccer, there's only certain calls like that they could, like the so-called things that have happened so blatantly, like that if they don't call it, it's blatant that they're rigging the game. And obviously there's always, in every sport, there's going to come down to refs messing up this and whatever. But the power that ref has, it normally comes down to that if that moment is to happen. And those are rare moments, like tripping someone in the penalty box in soccer, right? And you don't call that and he was on a breakaway. Like you could impact the game if it's 1-0, like stuff like that. But those are rare moments that are very small and slight that like it has to happen first for the ref to even have a power situation. But this sport, and when it comes to basketball, right, the refs, even like stuff like boxing too that they don't like, the refs from the gate have all the power. From the gate. They have all the power from the gate, whether they can allow things to go, whether they can not. Like they dictate the game like from the jump, which is why you've seen there's ref books and there's betting books with, you know, the Tim Donaghy and all this type of stuff. There's stuff that has been at play in the past, right? But these refs have a lot of power. And what I mean by that is you could see, if you have a trained eye, forget the biases, forget anything. When you've let the Nets play just normal, like normal basketball is when we talk about, we know playoff basketball is different. Playoff basketball is different. It already was more physical and already was more, you know, but it's a different era. Like the physicality you call, you even as much as physical it goes, they still call flagrant ones. They still call softer calls in this era because, you know, just this is the way the game is called now, right? You can't do hand checking. All of a sudden, yes, in playoffs, you allow some type of hand checking because like get into the spot and off ball movement. But when he has the ball, if a man's about to shoot and you're slapping his whole elbow, you call that. That's blatant. Like you call that no matter if it's playoffs or regular season. Now in the paint, maybe some verticalities you might allow more and stuff like that, rightfully so. But you're seeing a drastic change in calls in Milwaukee versus calls in Brooklyn, which is why you've seen KD always be efficient in Brooklyn and his efficiency has dropped down in Milwaukee, right? And let me try and talk about this as clear as day so people could understand what I'm saying, because this is not even about bias. This is even not even just about KD in general. This is what you're seeing, and I know what transpires. When I see certain things with a trained eye, I know what they're trying to do. I know the agenda. This is why you see me tweet. I know what they're doing now. And it's not about a 1-2 missed call. Like, I don't care about that. I never blame the refs. You see it on my videos. When do I say, oh, the refs sold this game? I never say that. I never, regardless. You fight through. That's what I might do. At the end, it doesn't matter. Right? That's how I go by. You see, like, come on, now man's been watching Jordan. We've seen the Jordan rules. We've seen the Detroit Pistons. We've seen all this stuff. We've seen this. You know what I'm saying? But in this era, when I see calls called differently, if you're gonna call it that way, call it throughout. But when I see calls different here and different here, then I know it's an agenda. And it's not a home play advantage, because that is allowed in terms of certain context, is more favorable, or you allow whatever. But when it's blatant, that's when you know what the agenda is. And it's going to come full circle, so let me get it right. But what I mean by that is, so the context of the year, right? The context of the year is a lot of stars have been injured, right? It's been the record or whatever, right? You've seen LeBron even say what he's saying. Because, at the end of the day, it's about business. It's about the money for the NBA in terms of these situations, right? You want your best players playing. And if you can't have your best players playing, then at least we're going to replace that with the amount of game 7s or game 6 to raise the interest level and raise the what's it called, the viewership in terms of the NBA making money, right? And especially now when you had in a pandemic where it was the lowest views and whatever, they have to make that shit back, or that's what their viewpoint is and their standpoint is. So that's why you've seen them. We're not going to have a shortened season. We're not going to have we're going to have a condensed 72 season, but we're not going to start way later and this and that. Like there's certain things they weren't going to do because it was about the money. And then now you're seeing players get injured, which is it's a chain reaction. But at the end of the day, again, the money was first and then everything else was second. So you're seeing that at play now. What I mean by that is if you look at game 1 and game 2, right? When you look at game 1 and game 2, this series, coming into this series, was supposed to be the conference finals series. This was supposed to be one of the biggest series, especially when you have LeBron out, you have Steph out, you know what I'm saying? Now you have Kawhi injured, right? You have all the main guys out. Even Chris Paul, is going through protocols. But even then, this series was supposed to be one of the main series. It was supposed to be like a Houston versus Golden State series that you saw, in the conference finals in 2018. So when you look at it from that perspective, that's why everyone was mad and everyone was writing the Bucks off already out the gate when you let them play normally. You still called fouls, you still allowed physicality, etc., right? You seen PJ and thing going back and forth. You already seen that with PJ and KD going back and forth in Brooklyn, even in game 1 and 2. But KD was still efficient. They still blew them out 2 straight games. NBA, you already know, it's clearly like there's no way. Like, we thought it was going to be closer than this. Like, let's say Milwaukee won 1 of the 2 games, or even both games was close and Brooklyn just pulled it out and it was still 2-0, but it didn't feel like 2-0. Then you already know, okay, at home court advantage is enough for them to win those games. But that's not the sentiment that was being brought up. That's not the context that was being brought up, because they're like, okay, we're going to have to give them a hella advantage in terms of Milwaukee, in terms of letting PJ Tucker even maul this nigga KD even more. Go to the paint. They're literally throwing him to the ground. Like, you're seeing that. And even then, okay, you want to say it's the paint? KD's I'm not going to go to the paint. I'm going to do these pull-ups. He's getting fouled on. You seen in Brooklyn when he gets fouled on jump shots? They call it and one. He goes to Milwaukee, and you even see that's why he's going like this, because you all see this shit? I'm about to pull up, and they're slapping his hand. You see on the replay. They don't call it. And he makes it. But he's missing it because they're not calling it. They're gripping him on his pull. You know what I'm saying? They're pulling, they're doing things that when they do it in Brooklyn, those are and ones. But when they're in Milwaukee, it's allowed. Drastically. There's a drastic difference in terms of reffing. And that's where I'm like, okay, I know what the hidden agenda is, because look at it. Milwaukee hasn't won 1 game in Brooklyn. Brooklyn hasn't won 1 game in Milwaukee. But who actually was almost like, Brooklyn almost won, even with the physicality and all the stuff they tried to allow to give Milwaukee the advantage. They've seen that game 3, KD hit the shot and they were still up. It was about to be, if they went up 3-0, you already know it's probably a sweep or 5. And they can't have that. So yes, Milwaukee did pull it out without the refs. They pulled it out, right? Obviously mistakes, Bruce Brown, whatever. They pulled it out. But they already know, Adam Silver, all of them know, bruh, this was already almost won. Come on now. Allow more calls. Allow more of it. Then you saw game 4 was just rape. Like, KD was just getting destroyed, thrown around recklessly. You know what I'm saying? And it's not even just KD, other teammates too. And I don't have no problem with physicality. Like, I understand. Get into the spot. If KD has to bang more, push more, you're allowing him and PG to be, more physical, whatever. But now when you're, even in the paint and whatever, but even when you're dashing a man, now you're impeding, you're now changing basketball. You're actually, you're making it not be basketball anymore, because a man is about to shoot and they're grabbing his arm. He's double team about to pass. They're holding his arm. They're pulling his jersey and pulling his arm that he can't pass because you just pulled his arm. So now it's a turnover. We're seeing these things. Now when you're changing the actual authenticity of the game, that's when I have a problem. Or you do it like that, always throw the whole, both Brooklyn and Milwaukee. But when you're changing, depending on the venue, because Milwaukee can't win on the road like that, especially because their palms get sweaty. Let's do it in Milwaukee so that at least they have the fan, all that type of stuff. And yet, Kyrie probably would have never been injured if they just called it like they called it normally, how they normally call it playoff basketball. You've seen Brooklyn was beating them in all those games. Taking in all the games that look like the 90s in terms of 80s, 80 points scoring and all that type of stuff. Milwaukee has won those games. Why? Because they allowed they allowed way more physicality than what, aggressive more physicality that it should be called. But they're not calling it. And it's not about begging for calls. It's not about that. It's about You can allow calls. I have no problem. Allow calls. You want to be physical with KD? Go ahead. You even see KD want that smoke. He's telling PJ, don't get tossed out with Blake. Like, I want you here. Like, allow that smoke. But now when mans are pulling up, when mans are in jump shot motion, when man like, and then for Middleton, you're calling it on the body. You're calling like that's the crazy part. It's not like you're allowing it both ways. Light contact, man, tap Drew's hand on the tap in. Oh, they call it and one. Like, Giannis going to the paint, little light touches, they call it. Like, you're not just allowing it both sides. You're clear. It's one-sided. And that's where I'm like, okay, I know what they're doing. I'm not mad because I know when they go back to Brooklyn, they call it normal playoff basketball. Like, it's like, I'm just calling out what the refs are doing and what the NBA is doing. I know what they're doing. They need the Game 7 ratings to absolve all what they've been missing. Because the ratings have been high, but they've been dropping because stars have been out, probably. I don't even need to see the numbers, and I just know. Mans are not like, I'm not watching this shit. Especially now you have no LeBron, when most of the casual fans love LeBron. He brings majority of the media ratings. He's not there. You see the ratings drop. One of the highest rating games was LeBron versus Steph. Like old school times. You know what I'm saying? Like throwback times. In the play-in. You know what I'm saying? Which is why the play-in was deemed as successful. Even with Steph being out. So you're having no Steph, you're having no LeBron. Like, these are the context happening. Then you bring the injuries. Like, come on now. They need a Milwaukee Bucks Nets series to beat Game 7. They need that. And watch Game 7 come when KD's about to pull up. Like, the grabs that they wouldn't call in Milwaukee, you're going to see them call. You're going to see them call. So it's like, really? That's what we doing? And that's what I had to just talk about because I see through it. I'm not going to be brainwashed by these guys, and I know people are going to bang, look at you crying for calls. No man is crying for calls. Like, it's either you don't call it or you call it. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. If you don't call it all the way through, it's playing both ends. You got to fight through, KD. You got to fight through, y'all. You got to fight through. But it's clearly blatant in Milwaukee. It's one-sided. It's clear. You have to literally hate KD or just be an extreme biased Bucks fans to actually tell me that what you're seeing and what I'm saying is cap. There's no way. Like, this is blatant. This is literally blatant. Like, I see it. But anyways, we go past that. Now that there's a Game 7. And the credit to the Bucks, because like I said, Middleton playing. Middleton at the end of the day, like, Middleton is showing you, and I've been said from time, he showed, like, he has KD-like ability. He's a poor man's KD. Very, very poor man's KD, obviously, because KD's that elite. Not no knock against Middleton, but, you know what I mean? There's levels to this. But he has that skill set. Right? So, you know, I always said Middleton was the best guy. He's the guy. It's up to him. And that's why I said the Nets I have winning the series, because if I had to choose the KD-like ability or the poor man's KD-like ability, who's going to win the game and is coming down to those two, I'm going to go with the KD, obviously, right? So, you know, that's why I like this. Giannis, like, you've seen Giannis run into the paint, not shoot threes. People think it's better. Like, it's just cap. He's shooting threes, not shooting threes, running to the paint. There's only so much Giannis could do, which is why you don't see him blow up 50. Because even when he tries going into the paint, there's going to be some times where it's padded because all you're doing is running into the paint. Contact. I can't go nowhere. Let me do a handoff now. Like, there's like that's why you're seeing him when he goes in transition. That's when now he starts out the gate and he's killing and starting out the gate. But when there's not transition, then that's when he's limited and is more half court. It's limited. And he has that one move, either the push over dribble where you push over and then fake like a Euros and go same way, or he does the just cross and then into a Euro. He has two moves, but it's still the base off one move. He has two, and that's it. Before he was even trying to spin, which would be his third move. But remember, Bruce Brown, every man was just on the spin. When he spins, they time it perfectly and they dig and they hold jump ball, tip him, steal. And so he has removed the spin, which has been smart. So that's why he removed the spin. They've told him don't spin. They on you on that, right? Just do your Euro, do whatever, use your length. So he adjusted a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But that's what he's doing. But at the end of the day, this is what's now a negative for the Nets, like I talked about in the beginning, right? When you look at with Harden isn't Harden. So Harden not being Harden. Normally, if Harden is Harden, KD it's okay, playoff ball. Harden play PG and you dictate what's going on. You want an action for KD, call it out. They do the action. KD gets in the post and whatever. That's what you saw in Milwaukee, right? Harden was moving more better, like individually. So that's why you've seen more off ball for KD. And that's why you've seen a lot of his shots were off ball post ups and stuff like that. He didn't do that much post ups in Brooklyn, right? He did a lot of post-ups in Milwaukee because now that Harden is playing point guard role, he's playing more off the ball. And the offense is different. Harden did have his 1-2 success, right? He actually played pretty good individually compared to what he did in Game 5. But again, it's what does this mean? Because it's two different play styles. When KD is bringing up the ball and running his, being the point guard, it's a complete different flow and offensive flow than when Harden is bringing up the ball and running point guards. It's a different offensive flow. Harden, when he brings up the ball as point guard, they run a 1-2 action, man switch it or whatever. If it doesn't work, then now he does his pick and roll and then he ISOs off of it, right? So it's a more slow tempoed game with Harden at the point guard. With KD at the point guard, they have actions. Harris comes, sets the screen. There's all their back screens that are happening. It's more of a Golden State type of flow with a high pick and roll, right? And then that's why you've seen KD playmaking, did all of that type of stuff. And that was actually more successful, which is why KD was able to have 49, 17, and 10. That's what they were doing. It was KD ball handling, KD playmaking and running the offense. And that's why Jeff Green was able to go off whatever. Jeff Green even got more limited shots because KD wasn't getting it in a point guard, bring up the ball role, play initiator role, ball handler role. He was getting it in an off-ball scorer role, which is what, get in the post, like what he was doing with Golden State. Draymond Green is running the flow, whatever. And then KD, you get post-ups here, you kill. Like he always killing Houston. They're forcing us to ISO, go to KD on the block, kill. And he's killing ISO situations, which is why you've seen him. It's funny how he actually got 30 shots playing this off-ball role because he's more of just get your bucket, as opposed to the 23 shots in game 5, even though he was more efficient and had more points because now it's in the flow. It's in the flow. I'm running the ball and whatever. The offense looked different, which is why they had their biggest onslaught in terms of shooting, in terms of scoring, everything with KD initiating the ball, which is why I'm saying because Harden isn't Harden, he's not able to move. You're always getting last minute or last second 7, 6, 5 back and in the shot clock shots. Because he can't move. He can't just go boom. Normally he will run the pick, do the burst out of it, and get either draw the foul, go to the paint, now go to the kick out, get the alley, whatever. And it's still high octane, fast paced offense, even though it's still sometimes slower with Harden ISO. But you know what I mean? It's different. That's what I always was saying. Even with Harden healthy, the pace is different when Harden is play initiating. Versus remember when he was out and you seen Kyrie and KD, it was literally high octane movement. Shaman and Harris are now getting more movement, because KD and Kyrie, they're both playing off the ball, but it's just they're playing within the flow. And that's what I was saying. That's why you saw those 2 blowout games become a blowout game. Now, obviously, the physicality changed in game 3, so it wasn't. But, that's what you've seen. And that's when the Nets literally will blow you out. When they have that flow going on, it's over. But now, obviously, the personnel has changed, which is why I said their best offense. The only time for 2 quarters, right? The third and the fourth quarter, KD majority of the times was bringing up the ball and play initiating. You've seen them. That was their best 2 quarters in game 5 and 6. All the other quarters has been KD playing off the ball, KD play initiating at times, here and there. It's inconsistent, but it's mainly Harden running the show, even while limited. And that's why you're seeing a drastic drop in offense. Not only that, when they do get stops, right? They do get a steal. Harden can't run. They can't push the tempo. So they're not getting no transition. So anytime you make a mistake, they're literally playing in a you can't make no mistake offense. And that's why KD was so special, because that's what it was. They were down. You can't make no mistake offense. And the reason why it's like that is because you're playing half court game. KD has to be so efficient, right? The shooters have to be able to hit timely shots. And then if they do miss, they have to get back on defense, or they score. That's technically like defense. So now you cancel Milwaukee's transition. So Milwaukee has so much advantages. One, if the Nets make a mistake, make a turnover like you saw early, turn over the ball, whatever, they're out in transition. Bucket. Because Harden can't run in transition, so just 4-on-5 at worst. Bucket, transition, or late transition, delayed transition bucket. Whether it's a fast break, a transition, or delayed transition bucket, you get mismatches with Harden, whatever, transition up tempo. So that's already a huge advantage for Milwaukee. Then now, Harden already is somewhat of a defensive liability. So you could attack him. He's in some type of action, the switch or whatever, bucket, right? That's another advantage. Then now, right, you're shooting back end of the shot clock. So now let's say the Nets don't actually make a shot and they do miss. Now, Giannis could go in transition again. Bucket. So the Nets have to play so perfect in a slower paced game that they can't even get no easy buckets. You're literally getting tough bucket after tough bucket after tough bucket. Maybe a 1-2 open shot, but if you miss it, tough bucket after tough. That's what they're getting. That's how their offense has been designed without KD play initiated. So they're already at a disadvantage already because of these injuries. So you have to change what's going on. And that's what I'm saying. Harden is there with his smarts. His playmaking is still there regardless, you know what I mean? He's still making great decisions and stuff like that. And he has been playing, and he played great, honestly, for his circumstance. But the negatives that he brings to the table, especially one of the key things is Bruce Brown being an active body. You know, his rolls and his slips with KD is hella crucial. Like that's what you saw with KD, right? And then not only that, Bruce Brown's defense on Middleton. He's the one who's actually played the best defense. Him and KD have played the best defense on Middleton. Because when Bruce Brown's not out there, you're now putting Harden in these switches, and now he's killing. Bruce Brown's defense, he fights through the screen, so they don't even have to switch a lot of times when Bruce Brown is playing the screen and roll game with Giannis and Middleton. Bruce Brown fights through and then he contests the step back, or he forces Middleton to have to pass or shoot a contested shot because Bruce Brown has mobility. He has, he can move laterally defensively. Like, he has that quickness and he's agile. He has like a Shumpert type of defense. That's what he reminds me of, right? Bruce Brown. So when you look at it from that perspective, great cutoff ability, contact, chest to chest, all of that. So when that's not in the game. Like that energy, that spark, that's not in the game. Bruce Brown is crucial. He's very crucial. Like, if you really know, you know. So that's not in the game when you're playing Harden all these minutes, right? And then now that changes certain things. And then now, like, it's just, there's a lot of negatives that Harden does bring that is crucial for what they need in this circumstance with no Kyrie. Because Kyrie's offense did a lot. Even if he misses or not, his offense did a lot. The attention he draws on a pull-up, now you hit to another shooter, like, it does a lot. And then not only that, Kyrie can play like a shooter coming off screens and whatever. Like, it does a lot. So when you miss that, you need to, especially with Harden injured and humbled, you need to maximize KD. That's what they need to do. Nash needs to have a talk with these guys. It's game 7. We don't want to go down. We don't want to put ourselves in a hole. We're down. Maybe it's 5 or whatever. We don't want to be a 15, 20 point down. Like, that's recipe for disaster, for an upset. You don't want that. You want to maximize KD. So what I would do is I will put KD in a lot of the times. Not every play. You know what I mean? Honestly, I would like it every play. And also to Harden, you got to catch and shoot, man. Because KD's running offense, and you pass to Harden, and he's there, has to do a step back. He was like, just catch and shoot, my guy. Just catch and shoot. Like, this man, he's used to do it. But it's like, this Houston stuff that he had to do in Houston, that Houston shit is literally ingratiated in his brain now. Like, it's just who he is now. Like, it's muscle memory for him to, I have to step back. I have to, like, dribble and shoot. Like, just catch and shoot. Like, even when he got fouled, he caught it open, catch and shoot. Then he had to dribble quick. Like, come on, Harden, man. Come on, just catch and shoot. But anyways, like I was saying, KD, you want to maximize KD. So you want to put him like they did in the high PNR. So KD was literally playing like he was Dame, but just did more mid-range. So what I mean by that is Dame's offense, a lot of the times they put Dame at a high pick and roll half court, and he pulls in the gap from high. So then now the big has to step up high, and he blows by them and gets to the paint. That's what KD was doing. He was running that offense. And that's whole spiritual experience you saw from Dame. KD was doing the same. It's funny how he said it, but it's ironic. He was doing the same offense in that same spiritual experience. It's just because a spiritual experience. It's just because KD is different that he's going to do more pull-ups in the gap, but he did a lot of drives too. Like, it was the same original high PNR at half court offense that Dame gets. So, do that again, because clearly they can't stop it. If they step up high, KD could blow by Lopez and get to the paint and do a layup. Hey! Or he sags off, he could pull from 3 or pull in the gap, kill him at the mid-range. Crossover, go to the mid-range, 2 dribble, 1 dribble, pull up. They help off of that, you know what I'm saying? Then he dimes to the right man. And then off of those actions, now you can sometimes put him in the post. Like, but do a lot. There needs to be more high PNR from KD and maximize him. That's your best way of, your best chance, your best way of, winning game 7. That's what they have to do. And that's what I'm seeing. Obviously, Harden brings a lot to the table, but he's not the same guy right now. He's on one leg. So you want to minimize him. Tell him he has to catch and shoot more. He'll get more catch and shoot looks. And if they don't help off him catch and shooting, then you're taking Drew, who's a great defender, great team, great on-ball defender. They stuck out on him. You're taking him out the way. So now when he does help, you're helping off Blake. You're helping off Jeff. You're helping off Bruce. You're helping off Shammy. You're helping off Joe. And Joe, you have to hit, man. You have to hit. I said you have Klay Thompson-like ability, but you haven't been shooting like Klay Thompson. And when I say Klay Thompson-like ability, I've been saying in terms of how he shoots, because most shooters are just catch and shoot shooters. But he's shooting off the curls, he's shooting off the gap. He has Klay Thompson mobility. He knows how to run fake screen, slip. Like, he moves off the ball. Literally is picture perfect, the same like Klay. Like, that's how he moves off the ball. That's why I say he has Klay Thompson-like ability. You have to be able to shoot, man. You have to be able to hit one, hit a couple. We need a 5 for 7. We need come on. But the thing is too, a lot of Joe's shots too is in pace and space, especially in transition. You pass that's what they were doing. You pass the Kyrie, head fake, now they help. You pass to the corner and Joe's open. You know what I mean? He got a lot in transition. That's how he killed Boston that 125-point game or whatever he had. It was transition too. So when you're not moving in space and he only gets a limited 3-4 shots in a whole quarter or maybe a whole half, you know what I mean? Because only the rare situation he's open because they know he could shoot. Because they're running actions for him, but they're switching everything. So it cancels. So he can't. You know what I mean? You need Joe Harris. He needs to get the benefit of pace. And you see Nash telling them, pick up the pace, pick up the pace, pick up the pace. You know what I'm saying? But, with Harden obviously hobbled, the pace isn't able to be brought up. So I don't know. Maybe Nash has to maybe sit him at times, sit him more, or put him in off ball and just stop having him play initiate all the time, stuff like that. So this is his presence does matter too. So I don't know how Nash plays this. If this was me, I might honestly sit Harden and, maybe just bring him off the bench type shit. I might just start, you know what I mean? Bruce Brown, put him at PG, but he's not running PG. Bruce Brown, or do a Shamit, Joe Harris, KD, Jeff Green, Blake lineup to start. You know what I mean? And we do that. And you do pick and roll with Jeff Green, sometimes Blake spotting up, or, you know what I mean? And that's what you do. Or you do Bruce, Bruce, Joe Harris, Jeff, Blake, you know what I mean? And KD. And then you bring Harden off the bench to dictate on what's going on. I promise you, if you have that lineup, I'm telling you, they're going to have more high-octane offense, more movement. There's not going to be a weakness on defense. You're going to have all of that. I know Harden's trying to play, but he's hobbled. So, to me, he's doing more disservice than a service. Right, if you really have the eye, just to maximize the team's output, he's hindering the most crucial things. So that's kind of my verdict when I look at it. You know what I mean? I think that you play, like I said, you play different lineup and stuff like that. This Nets team gets maximized. But again, you can play him like you've seen in Game 5, but run it like Game 5 where KD's the play initiator. Then again, you can see a different outcome. But also too, I don't like Jeff Green I've never liked Jeff Green on Giannis because he's not meeting him at the point, and his cutoff ability in terms of bodying up, he's not as strong as Blake. So Blake bodies Giannis up enough that it pushes him back where he stops his, because that's what they're doing. They're sagging up so far back that he's euroing around you. If you're not perfectly set and you don't get the charge, he's gonna euro around you, and he does the same move, right? The fake euro or the same euro. And what Blake does properly is he sags off him, but he meets him at the free throw line. You meet him earlier. You sag off him at free throw, so you meet him at the first point of the initial cut, dribble, and then you contact, and he cancels. So he has to now post and do post fades and stuff like that. You don't go further down into the restricted to where now he could get that step and run it in euro. He literally just running straight, and then does his euro or whatever. So you have to meet him at free throw line. Guard him from free throw line lower. That's where you guard him. Free throw line, in between the restricted and free throw line, is the lowest point you should be. Guard him at free throw line, so then now if he shoots, you at least touch him and contest, and he's going to miss that. But now when he tries to run down, he only gets one dribble. He doesn't get one dribble and then you meet him. No, he gets that one dribble, you cut him off there, contact, okay. That's where you even will get the charges too. You can't just sag back off OD, even especially in transition. Cut him off high. Run at free throw line and stop him. You don't wait for him to get to you, especially in transition, and it's just easy. He's too long. So there's ways to cancel that. I lose off that. I mean, you know what I mean? I lose off that. But at the end of the day, like I said, you know what I mean? They can win this Game 7. But again, for the Bucks, it comes straight down to Middleton and Drew doing at least a 1-2, right? At least making 8 field goals, 7, 8, 9 field goals. If he's making only 4, Middleton has to now increase his to 50 or 40, right? And on the road, they don't shoot the greatest. So, it comes down to Middleton. It really does. Giannis is whatever. It comes down to Middleton and Drew. I've always said that from the dawn of time. Now the question is, do you really trust that versus KD? Who do you trust, Middleton or KD? You be the one to choose that answer. You be the one to, decide whether you want to bet on yourself or bet on Middleton versus KD. Middleton, maybe in any other series like the Heat or whatever, he has been the best guy. But when you like him versus KD in terms of who it comes down to, who do you trust more? That's the question. You know who I trust in the clutch time? I trust my in the clutch time, I trust mine. You feel me? So you already know, man. That's what it comes down to. I appreciate y'all. Share, like, and subscribe. It's True Talks, because True Talks what elite looks like, man. At the end of the day, they got what they wanted. They got a Game 7. I promise you, you're going to see it's going to be refereed differently. Now, because it's a Game 7, they might actually allow more. They might. But the thing is, there's a difference between allowing more, like I said, and then blatant fouls on like pull-ups and stuff like that. Like if it was just allow more, then why would Middleton get all these touch fouls at the 3-point line? Why would he get them? Because again, they called it one way. That's what I was saying. So if you allow the Middleton and if you allow the KD, then allow the Middleton. Then let's let them play. You can't pick and choose. But I promise you, in Game 7, they're gonna pick and choose. You're gonna see the referee differently, and that's what I don't like. Like, is not forget the team that I want to win. Forget that. Just I want proper basketball. I want fair basketball. I want the players to dictate everything. I don't want the refs to dictate. You call it one way or you allow it. Don't pick and choose. If you call blatant fouls on one end, call blatant fouls on both ends. And then now, so at least the players know I can't foul. I have to be smart. Like, they can play. They play. Let the players play. Let the ability dictate. Like, that's what I want. If Middleton's ability dictates and beats KD, then so be it. At least I saw elite basketball and okay, KD, you suss the runs or whatever the case is. Like, I don't want a unfair ground. So it's like you give this man an advantage or this man has to extra fight when he should still be able to extra fight. Don't get it twisted. But at the end of the day, I'm just calling it as it is. I'm just calling it as it is. Stop capping, refs. Allow it. Both ends. I'm excited to see a Game 7. So they got what they want. The NBA, you're gonna see everybody tune in, especially Saturday night. Everyone's tuning in, and you already know what time it is. So we'll see who will prevail. I still got the Nets in 7, and I think KD's gonna look more like Game 5 KD. I think the Nash will do more adjustments. Maybe KD plays all 48 again, but they can't go down early. I don't want to see that shit. In fact, I want to see a blowout. I want to see a blowout. But, you know, people want the anxiety. They want the nerves of a clutch game. In the clutch, the Bucks have only won one game. So, you know what I mean? And that was even mistakes by Bruce. Without that, every clutch game has been the Nets. So if the Bucks want to win, they want to win by 10 or blowout. If the Nets want to win, keep it close or blow out myself. So the Bucks only have one area they could win if they blow out themselves. So we'll see how it goes, man. You already know. I appreciate y'all. Like I said, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. You already know. And I'm out, man.